The tanker ghost. You won't believe what happened when some bad guys tried to steal from the wrong truck driver. The ghost of an oil truck. Huh, you're here to get your oil back. Give back what you stole. You picked the wrong person to mess with. They had no idea the truck driver was a war hero until she beat an entire gang of bad guys all by herself. The afternoon sun made golden-orange lines across the hot road of Highway 9. The deep, loud rumble of the old red oil truck echoed through the empty land. The dry air smelled like road dust and a tiny bit of gas. Sarah Miller, 38 years old, sat behind the wheel looking very calm. Dark sunglasses hid her sharp watching eyes, but couldn't hide how she was always ready for trouble. You could see it in every small movement of her head. Her rough hands had a bunch of old scars on them. Each scar was like a quiet story about past fights and really hard training. She held the steering wheel with the perfect grip, like she'd done it a million times. Her brown work jacket and black pants made her look like any regular long-distance truck driver. But the way she sat up straight and constantly checked her mirrors showed something different. A soldier's way of thinking. This came from years of always being careful and ready. In the past, Sarah had been a really good army teacher. She was a master at sneaky fighting tricks and had been through many dangerous missions. What she was best at was escaping and fighting back against surprise attacks. These skills were learned during real, scary fighting situations. She taught her students to read the land around them, to guess where danger might come from, not just from what they could see, but from what they couldn't see. Now she chose a quiet life as a truck driver. It was her way of getting away from all the craziness. But those fighting skills and amazing ability to handle anything still ran through her blood, ready to come out when she needed them. Sarah's job today seemed easy. Drive 9,000 gallons of really important fuel to a hospital way up in the mountains. This hospital was like a bright light of hope in an area where not many people lived. It needed its generators to work for emergency surgeries, life support machines, and basic things to keep running. But on this lonely road, stories about trucks mysteriously disappearing had been spreading like crazy. Sarah didn't know that Elias Shadowthorn, a cold and mean mastermind, had been secretly watching and planning an attack on her exact shipment. For Thorn, this wasn't just about fuel. It was like a special tool to help him control a huge illegal business. The fight between good and evil was about to start. At Truckers Haven, a roadside restaurant, the air felt thick with worry. Experienced drivers talked about trucks vanishing without a trace on the very road Sarah was about to take. Could be smugglers, or worse, much worse, one old tough-looking driver mumbled. Suspicious looks fell on Sarah, a woman driving an oil truck alone. That was really rare here, especially with all the recent disappearances. She could choose another, safer road, but that would mean waiting 6 more hours. The hospital really needed the fuel right away for important emergency surgeries. Sarah looked at a small plastic-covered photo taped to her dashboard. It was a gift from an old army friend, a peaceful mountain scene with simple, powerful words. Be the calm in chaos. Her decision was made. Other people's needs always came before her own comfort or even safety. This was a lesson she learned deeply from her time in the army. The mission comes first. Sarah didn't go into this blindly. Even before stopping at the restaurant, she'd spent hours carefully getting ready. She had an old, torn map with creases, worn smooth. It showed every side road, hidden rest stop, and dangerous area, each marked with a different escape route or possible attack spot. This wasn't just the experience of a veteran driver, it was the smart thinking of a former army teacher. She knew if anything happened, she'd have to count on herself and skills learned over many years in much more dangerous places. Her plan, as always, was simple but worked well. Watch, change, and survive. It was the first rule she taught her students. The battlefield changes constantly. Change with it or die. As Sarah drove away, a dusty white pickup truck with really dark windows appeared out of nowhere. It being there was too much of a coincidence. Sarah's warning feelings, which had been sleeping during her normal life, immediately woke up. She kept driving at a steady, normal speed, but her eyes, hidden behind dark sunglasses, recorded every detail. She noticed the small shine of a weird antenna, the barely visible bulge under the driver's jacket, and the suspicious license plate. This wasn't just some random car, it was a spy. Further down the road, the CB radio, which was usually buzzing with trucker talk, suddenly went completely quiet. This was a weird, scary sign that only experienced drivers and people trained in electronic fighting would notice. It was a clear sign of an electronic jammer or fancy spying equipment. Sarah felt a big change in the atmosphere, like a hunting animal, catching the first tiny smell of danger in the wind. She quietly changed how she was sitting, held the steering wheel tighter, and started using her mirrors in a pattern, scanning the entire area around her, a habit drilled into her during countless patrols. Meanwhile, miles away in a strong underground command center, Elias Shadowthorn leaned forward. His face was lit up by multiple screens. His cold, calculating gray eyes tracked a small red dot that represented Sarah's truck. She knows, he whispered, his voice low and rough, too observant for a regular driver. The jamming signal has proved it. He took a slow sip of black coffee. Good, a challenge. This shipment is more than just fuel, gentlemen, it's power. He pointed to a helper. Tighten the trap and get ready for tricky moves. She won't be easy to catch. The white pickup showed up again, this time with clearer, more aggressive purpose. It stayed just far enough away not to make a regular driver suspicious. But Sarah wasn't regular. She watched its weird speeding up and slowing down, how it slightly drifted into the opposite lane whenever another car came near, a classic trick to block escape routes. She purposely pulled over at an empty rest area, pretending to check a tire, but actually looking around with the heightened senses of a hunted animal. The slightly disturbed patch of gravel near her back tires confirmed what she suspected: a tracking device had been removed or planted. Sarah felt no panic, no anger. Instead, she felt a strange, unsettling familiarity, as if she was returning to her old world, a place where danger was always there. Night started to fall, and she knew this was when the enemy would make their move. The long-unused fighting skills perfected over 10 years of combat and training started to wake up in her mind. The CB radio, still mostly silent, started making rhythmic static and clicks, clear-coded communication signals. Sarah immediately recognized this. It wasn't the work of ordinary robbers. This was a coordinated, professional operation. Probably ex-military, or highly trained soldiers for hire. She spotted a faint red glow on the distant hills, the heat signature of another vehicle, camouflaged and watching. This confirmed multiple observation points. This was a classic pincer movement, designed to trap a target. At this point, Sarah reached under her seat and got out a small, reinforced case containing military-grade tools, a compact tactical flashlight with multiple beam settings, a precision compass with a glow-in-the-dark feature, and her detailed terrain map. No longer just an ordinary driver. Sarah Miller was becoming the tanker ghost, a silent warrior with terrifying, almost supernatural skills, ready to disappear and reappear where least expected. Ilias Thorne, from his hidden command center, watched Sarah. A muscle twitched in his jaw when she suddenly went off his planned path. "She's changing too quickly," he growled. "She's using classic trick tactics. Kyle, focus the drones. Don't let her escape. The kill zone." He lightly pounded his fist on the desk. "Tighten the trap. I want that fuel." Sarah decided to enter Dead Man's Ridge, a dangerous road known for its narrow passes, blind curves, and steep drops. It was a risky choice, but also a smart one from her military training. It offered more chances for hiding and surprise attacks. The white pickup, now joined by a threatening dark SUV, were both actively closing in. Their engines roared, lights flashing in her mirrors. Instead of panicking, Sarah calmly reached for her CB radio. "This is Ghost Rider. Anyone copy? Code red on Highway 9. High-value target under attack. Repeat, high-value target under attack." Static crackled. Then a familiar voice cut through the air. "Ghost Rider, this is Bravo 6. Corporal David Rodriguez." "Sarah, is that you?" Sarah felt a surge of unexpected relief, quickly pushed down. "David, yes, glad to hear your voice." "Long time?" "Too long, ma'am," David responded, his voice mixed with concern and amazement. "We've been listening to chatter about a high-value fuel transport. Intelligence suggests it's Thorne's group. They're well-equipped, highly motivated. We're talking about fancy jammers, heat-sensing drones, even small air support. What are you facing?" "A full-scale operation, David. They brought nets and bolt cutters, not just crowbars. They want this fuel in one piece, probably for their own supply lines, and they know who I am." This confirmed Sarah wasn't just facing a simple robbery, but a carefully planned campaign with specific strategic goals. This wasn't about money, it was about power. "Understood, ma'am. Local units are busy. I'm getting a rapid response unit ready, but we're at least 45 minutes away. Can you hold them off?" David's voice was serious. "I'll do my best," Sarah replied, grim determination hardening her voice. Time for old tricks. She started using tactics from her past, creating false signals by quickly flicking her lights and making sudden fake turns, using the rolling land for hiding, dropping into dips and rising over hills to briefly disappear from their view. Realizing there was no easy escape, Sarah made a sudden sharp turn, driving the massive truck onto a barely visible forest road, little more than a logging trail. The branches scraped loudly. As soon as she was out of sight, she cut the headlights and engine, making the clearing completely dark and silent. From her special side compartment, she got out smoke flares, a compact high-powered tactical spotlight, and heat patches. This was when she started putting her counterattack plan into action. A plan based on confusion and misdirection. Sarah quickly set up a fake target. She wrapped a red smoke flare in rubber tubing, securing it under a fallen log about 100 yards back. She then drove the truck down a steep, almost invisible ravine, skillfully navigating the dangerous slope. Then up a logging ramp on the opposite side, wedging the massive vehicle tightly between two ancient trees. She shut off all lights and the engine again, effectively making the truck part of the darkened forest. Her plan was simple but effective. Let the enemies follow the fake target into the thick smoke, cause a chaotic multi-vehicle crash, then use the blinding tactical spotlight to confuse them even more. This was a classic kill zone strategy she had taught her students. Use the environment as your weapon. Funnel your enemy where you want them. Then strike. Elias Thorne, watching from far away, saw the red dot representing Sarah's truck veer sharply off the highway. She's trying to break line of sight, he muttered, frustration growing. Send in the drone's thermal override. When the bad guy vehicles, confident they had cornered their target, followed the fake target into the swirling red smoke, Sarah executed her first strike. As the first vehicle, a black Humvee, plunged into the thick red cloud, Sarah turned on the tactical spotlight. Its piercing beam cut through the smoke and directly into the windshields of the lead vehicles, blinding the drivers. At the same time, she threw the second flare, not just for smoke, but to light the dry leaves and pine needles, creating a wall of fire that added to the chaos. The sickening sound of screeching tires, crunching metal, and breaking glass echoed through the night as the bad guy vehicles, confused and blinded, crashed into each other. Sarah moved the truck slightly, for her next move. She then quickly stuck several heat strips, small sticky chemical patches, to various parts of the truck's outside, especially on the side facing away from the fight. This created false heat signatures, misdirecting the bad guys' heat devices and drones. David confirmed over the radio, his voice tinged with amazement, that the bad guy drones were indeed tracking multiple false signals. They're chasing ghosts. Ma'am, your old tricks still work. Elias Thorne, from his command center, watched Sarah. His frown deepened when she executed her counter-ambush. She's changing too quickly, he growled. She's using classic trick tactics. Kyle, focus the drones. We need real-time pictures. Don't let her escape the kill zone. David reported his rapid response unit would arrive within 20 minutes, having secured local backup. We're going to hit them hard, ma'am, he promised. Sarah pulled the truck deeper into the forest. Using the thick tree cover to hide her movements, she quickly set up an extra floodlight with a timer, pointing it towards a seemingly open path, creating another layer of visual confusion. She then opened a steel box containing industrial-grade tape, heavy-duty zip ties, and a more detailed hand-drawn map of the immediate area. She marked a broken wooden bridge in her mind, a leftover from an old logging operation, recognizing it as a potential trap for heavy vehicles. It was the perfect choke point. The wind howled through the rock cracks of Dead Man's Ridge, carrying the distinct smell of smoke and diesel. Sarah stood tall, her damp hair stuck to her forehead, her sharp eyes scanning the area, ever watchful. The truck's headlights, subtly repositioned, shone directly onto a tall, lean figure standing poised on a rocky outcrop not far away. It was Elias Shadow Thorne. He stood with arms crossed, his face showing no emotion, his cold gray eyes fixed on Sarah, a silent judgment. He wasn't angry, only coldly disappointed by his helper's failure. You've truly surprised me, Ms. Miller, Thorne's voice echoed, eerily calm. Your ability to change far exceeded expectations. A fuel truck, a deadly weapon in a woman's hands. Remarkable. Sarah didn't respond, only offered a slight, almost invisible smirk. She knew perfectly well the man before her wasn't just a simple bad guy leader. He walked down a step, the floodlight showing the lightning bolt scar on his wrist. But you know the game isn't over. You've won this round, but I always have other cards. That fuel, I will have it, sooner or later. You'll never get what you don't deserve. Thorne? Sarah finally spoke, her voice low and determined, echoing the confidence of a seasoned veteran. And you don't deserve it. Thorne let out a scornful chuckle. That hero attitude will cost you, Ms. Miller. The world doesn't work that way. Resources go to those strong enough to take them. Maybe not, Sarah said slowly, her eyes narrowing as she shifted her weight. But my truck does. Immediately, Sarah lunged for the truck door. Before Thorne could react, the massive diesel engine roared to life, shaking the ground. The truck began rolling, kicking up a thick cloud of dust and gravel, hiding her movements. Thorne stood motionless, watching the truck and Sarah's outline disappear into the rising dawn. His face was still cold, but deep within those gray eyes, a flicker of intense obsession ignited. He had found a worthy opponent, and their game had only just begun. Sarah continued to drive the truck through a gully, its heavy frame groaning under the strain, still followed by what was left of the bad guy convoy. She stopped briefly in a small clearing. Here she quickly set up another fake target, a spare tire wrapped in a canvas tarp and a heat blanket with a chemical hand warmer inside to copy an idling engine. She added a small broken mirror positioned to catch and reflect any distant light, creating an unpredictable, confusing flicker from the now frequently accessed toolbox. Sarah got out road flares, a siphon hose, and a metal catch can. With swift, practiced movements, she siphoned a small amount of diesel fuel from the truck, letting it drip an almost invisible trail down the subtle slope leading towards the broken bridge. She then quickly coated her tires with this slick diesel, ensuring maximum grip moving forward. She dropped a red flare onto the diesel trail, creating a controlled, localized smoke screen. Her plan was gradually completing, relying not on brute force or overwhelming firepower, but on physics, pressure, and careful planning. Every step was carefully calculated, every trap designed to maximize effectiveness with minimal resources. This was the essence of her combat engineering training. Use your environment. exploit weaknesses, and let the enemy defeat themselves. In a brief moment of rest, Sarah felt the immense weight of responsibility. 9,000 gallons of crucial fuel, potentially the difference between life and death for countless patients, depended entirely on her ability to deliver it. The hospital was waiting. Emergency surgeries might be delayed. She looked at the small photo on the dashboard once more, the reminder to be the calm in chaos. Doubt lasted only a second. Sarah Miller wasn't a quitter. She had been trained to face the worst with steady hands and a clear mind. She prepared for the final confrontation. The lead bad guy vehicle, a reinforced armored SUV, burst from the tree line and hit the diesel trail at full speed. Its tires lost grip, spinning wildly. The massive vehicle careened uncontrollably before slamming with sickening force into a large, unmovable boulder. The second bad guy vehicle, following too closely, hit the first, sending it spinning sideways, effectively blocking the narrow path to the bridge. The sound of crunching metal, shattering glass, and deployed airbags echoed through the pre-dawn darkness. Sarah didn't stop. She immediately moved to the next decisive phase of her plan. She drove the truck along a steep uphill curve, its engine roaring towards the old falling-apart wooden bridge she remembered from her training days. This would be where the final confrontation took place. The night air was cold, biting at her exposed skin, but Sarah felt sweat running down her back, a familiar sensation from adrenaline. This was it. Sarah stopped the truck just before the bridge's entrance. With practiced precision, she reversed slightly, angling the massive vehicle. She then subtly applied controlled pressure, just enough to crack a key structural plank on the bridge's main support beam, subtly weakening it without causing immediate collapse. A bad guy drone buzzed overhead, still chasing the false heat signals. The growing roar of engines from far away indicated the remaining enemies were approaching. She had only minutes. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the raw surge of adrenaline. The electric tension of a warrior preparing for the final decisive battle. Sarah checked all her equipment. The first bad guy vehicle, a heavily modified pickup truck, broke free from the smoke and drove onto the bridge. The weakened plank couldn't bear the immense weight. With a deafening crack and splintering wood, the front axle of the pickup collapsed through the bridge deck, sending the vehicle lurching forward, its nose buried in the wreckage. The second vehicle, a battered utility van, swerved violently and got caught sideways, its rear wheels hanging dangerously over the edge. This was Sarah's cue. She executed her final bold move. She slammed the truck into gear and, with a powerful surge of diesel engine, rammed the massive vehicle into the stalled SUV, pushing it violently off the bridge with a sickening crunch of metal against wood and a final splash as it plunged into the shallow rocky creek below. Smoke and dust filled the air, mixing with the smell of burning oil and splintered wood. Sarah, moving with lightning speed, threw a broken mirror onto the ground. Its shattered surface reflected the sparse moonlight in unpredictable, confusing flashes. She dropped her last heat pack on an opposite trail, creating yet another false heat signature. Then, with incredible agility, she climbed the ridge on foot. Seconds later, she reappeared with the truck from the opposite side of the bridge, having executed a daring, unforeseen maneuver through a hidden path she had identified on her map. The remaining attackers, witnessing the impossible, were completely confused. Their discipline shattered as they scattered in disarray. One bad guy, a big brute with an assault rifle, tried to run but tripped over a barely visible thin chain strip Sarah had laid across the trail, falling face first into the dirt. When Sarah reappeared from the swirling smoke and dust, her appearance was messy, hair clinging to her forehead, field jacket torn, knees scraped, boots caked with dust. But her posture remained steady, her movements calm and controlled. Most of the remaining bad guys were coughing, their faces blackened, many already zip-tied and marked with mocking words like "too slow" or "ghosted" scrawled in paint on their vests. Not a single shot fired from Sarah's side, only physics, pressure, and careful planning. Sarah Miller had proven that intelligence, experience, and an intimate understanding of the environment could defeat violence in overwhelming numbers. She stood amidst the fading smoke, a silent victor. Elias Thorne, somewhere far away, was certainly receiving reports of this terrible, unprecedented failure. His fury, Sarah knew, would ignite. But now Sarah only cared about one thing: completing her mission. She had become the Tanker Ghost, a legend born from necessity and forged in the crucible of tactical brilliance. As dawn broke, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Sarah's battered red truck rolled onto the final stretch of asphalt at the hospital entrance. Despite her deep exhaustion, the significant damage to her truck, the scraped paint, the dented bumper, the broken lights, she had completed the crucial fuel delivery. She simply handed the head nurse a clipboard, confirmed the delivery with a nod, and said little about the ordeal, her face showing no emotion. The fuel would power generators for life-saving surgeries, maintain critical care equipment, and ensure the hospital could continue serving the community. Sarah's mission was accomplished, but she felt no need for recognition or praise. The deep satisfaction came from knowing lives would be saved. Moments later, Corporal David Rodriguez and his backup unit arrived. their expressions a mixture of awe and disbelief as they surveyed the damaged truck and the remarkably calm Sarah. "Ma'am," David began, his voice hoarse. "The bad guys we caught, they're calling you the tanker ghost. The stories are already spreading." Sarah merely waved a hand dismissively at the approaching media vans. "Just report whatever makes sense. David, just leave my name out of it." She prioritized mission completion and anonymity over fleeting fame. The story would spread like wildfire among truckers and law enforcement, becoming a modern legend whispered across the highways. But Sarah drove off, vanishing before the cameras could get close, preferring the quiet solitude of anonymity to the glare of public attention. Sometime later, at a quiet diner in Arizona, Sarah read a news article on her phone about the tanker ghost without showing a flicker of emotion. She overheard truckers at the counter discussing her feat, their voices filled with awe, confirming her silent victory. One grizzled trucker with sharp eyes recognized her, perhaps from an old photo or just a gut feeling. He gave her a respectful nod across the room, which Sarah subtly returned. A brief shared moment of understanding between kindred spirits of the road. She quietly finished her coffee, paid her bill, and left. She drove her now clean, but still, road-worn rig onto the highway, disappearing once more into the early morning sun, continuing her journey as an unseen hero, proving that true strength often moves in silence, leaving only whispers of its impact.